You're doing everything right, and yet she's slipping away. You show up, you're available, you respond quickly. You buy the flowers, send the texts, listen to her problems even when you're exhausted. You never make her wait. You never make her wonder. You never make her doubt your love. You're doing it all the right way. Doom. So why does she look bored when she's with you? Why does she ignore your messages? Why is she texting other guys when you're the one who never stopped showing up? Let's be real. There's a rage growing inside you. Not loud, not explosive, but the kind that eats you from the inside. A silent scream. What else do I need to do to be enough? But that question, that very question, is why you're losing her. Because the moment you're asking what more you can do, you've already surrendered your position. And deep down, she knows it. She feels it. That subtle shift from a man who chooses to a man who begs to be chosen. And desire dies there. Desire doesn't thrive in safety. It doesn't bloom in predictability. It doesn't grow in the soil of constant validation. You became too soft, too soon, too available. And while society taught you that this would make you lovable, nature and her instincts don't agree. There's a truth few will say out loud, but you've felt it in your gut. The more emotionally available you became, the more invisible you became. It wasn't rejection. It was something colder, disinterest, a dull silence where there used to be sparks. And it didn't matter how many good morning texts you sent. She felt nothing. Let's be clear. This isn't about becoming cold or manipulative. It's about power, and in every relationship someone holds it and someone chases it. Most men unknowingly trade their power for approval. They start managing her emotions instead of commanding her respect. They respond to every sigh like it's a crisis, apologize for existing, and confuse niceness with worth. She doesn't want your apologies. She wants your presence. She doesn't crave your explanations. She craves your center, your silence, your groundedness. But you handed all that away when you thought being the perfect boyfriend would keep her. Now here you are, wondering why she doesn't call back, wondering why your love feels like begging. You think she's ungrateful. Maybe she is. But more than that, she's unimpressed. Not by who you are, but by the fact that you stopped being a man she could feel something for. You became her emotional butler, not her challenge, not her mystery, not her storm. Because she didn't lose interest when you were kind. She lost interest when you stopped being dangerous. Don't misunderstand. Dangerous doesn't mean cruel. It means untouchable. It means rooted. It means unshaken. It means your world doesn't revolve around her approval. And when a woman senses that, when she feels that she can't completely decode you, tame you, or predict you, that's when she leans in. That's when the desire comes back. Not when you chase, not when you soften, but when you stand. There's a reason men who are cold, arrogant, even selfish still end up desired. It's not because those traits are good. It's because they signal strength, detachment, a sense that I'm not here to impress you, I'm here because I choose to be. And while that might sound cruel, it touches something deep in her psyche. Because at the core of feminine desire is the craving to be claimed, not accommodated. You can't accommodate your way into her heart. You can only lead her there. But you stopped leading the moment you started explaining. You became soft clay in her hands instead of being the stone that forces her to feel something real, something primal. Even if she doesn't say it, she can sense when you're unsure of yourself, when you're walking on eggshells, when you're overthinking every move, and when she feels that weakness, even if it comes wrapped in kindness. Her body recoils. Her soul shuts off. Because in the wild logic of attraction, weakness is a threat to safety. And if she doesn't feel safe in your strength, she will never feel free to desire you. This is why she used to light up when you were less available. Why she smiled more when you challenged her, teased her, made her wonder where you stood. Because then she felt your presence, not your pressure. She felt your weight, not your worry. She felt your fire, not your fear of losing her. You thought being consistent would make her love you, but you forgot one thing. Consistency without edge becomes monotony, and no one burns for monotony. So now you sit there, wondering what went wrong, thinking you were too nice, too soft, too open. And maybe you were. But more than that, you forgot the truth. What makes you lovable isn't what you give, it's what you withhold. You stopped being a question, and that's when she stopped being curious. Because a woman doesn't fall for your gifts. She falls for the man who can say no and mean it, the man who doesn't chase but attracts, the man who could walk away and doesn't. That's the man who owns her mind, even when he's silent. You were trying to love her, but she was testing your gravity. And when you floated, she lost interest. You were told to express your feelings, to be honest, to open up. You believed that if you just showed her how much you care, she'd see your value and choose you over the rest. You thought vulnerability meant connection, that honesty would lead to intimacy, but instead, every word you spoke seemed to pull her further away. She smiled when you confessed your love, but it was a polite smile, not the kind that melts with desire. She said, "You're sweet," but her phone kept buzzing from other names. She told you, "You're different," but never actually chose you. Because the truth is brutal. You became emotionally naked in front of someone who wasn't ready to hold your truth. And that's when it happens. That's when the shift occurs, when you go from being seen as romantic to being seen as soft, from strong to needy, from desired to safe. But safe doesn't stir longing. Safe doesn't keep her up at night wondering if she's enough. Safe doesn't keep her mind spinning, her stomach tight, her heart racing at the sound of your name. Safe is where she puts the men she respects but doesn't fantasize about. And here's the hardest part to swallow. The more emotionally available you became, the more emotionally distant she became. Because deep down, you didn't realize you were offering your soul not from power, but from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being rejected, fear of not being chosen, and fear repels desire. Let's be honest. When you text her 3 times and she doesn't respond, why do you send the 4th? When she says, "I'm just not ready for something serious," why do you stay in her life like a pet waiting for crumbs? When she ghosts you and reappears days later with a "Hey stranger," why do you reply in seconds? You think it's loyalty, but to her it looks like desperation. Like you're a man with no backbone, no threshold, no standards. A man who fears silence more than disrespect. A man who thinks being nice is a virtue that will eventually be rewarded with love. But that's not how attraction works. Attraction isn't logical, it's emotional, it's primal, and primal attraction is rooted in contrast. Certainty and unpredictability, safety and tension, love and mystery. When you become too consistent in your affection, too predictable in your behavior, too emotionally eager, you erase that contrast. You remove the spark, and without the spark, there's no fire. Let me tell you something you already know but haven't admitted. She treated you better when you were harder to reach, when you had boundaries, when you didn't reply instantly, when you had your own world, when she wasn't sure if you liked her that much. That's when she wore makeup to see you. That's when she sent those long texts. That's when she tried, because she felt your value, because she was still chasing you, but then you gave it all too fast. Your attention, your energy, your time. You thought love was about giving without limit. And yes, love is generous, but desire is selective. It's not about how much you give, it's about what she has to earn. And once she doesn't have to earn anything, she stops valuing everything. The men she obsesses over, they're not always the most attractive, richest, or smartest, but they're the ones who make her feel uncertain, not unsafe, but on edge, alive, curious. They're the ones who are rooted, who know their worth, who don't need her to feel complete, who walk away when disrespected and don't look back, who listen but don't beg, who care but not at the expense of their dignity. They are the men she can't manipulate, because she knows if she pushes too hard, he'll disappear. And that makes her choose her words more carefully. That makes her second-guess her tone. That makes her feel. Do you know how rare it is for a woman to actually feel something today? In a world full of men bending over backward, apologizing for things they didn't do, begging for attention, over-explaining their intentions, and building their entire identity around being accepted, you become unforgettable when you simply don't play, when you can sit in silence and not fill it, when you can love her but not need her, when you can offer your presence, not your submission. This is not about being toxic. It's about being sovereign, about being so grounded in who you are that she can't shake you, can't define you, can't own you. And because of that, she wants you even more. She doesn't want a man who texts good morning every day without fail. She wants a man who's so locked into his mission that when he says good morning, it means something. A man who's not emotionally available every second because he's emotionally disciplined. A man who can love with depth but doesn't pour it out like it's cheap wine. And here's the irony she'll never admit. She will test you by pulling away, just to see if you'll chase. She'll say things to see if you flinch. She'll pretend not to care to see if you crumble. And if you do, game over. Not because she's evil, but because instinctively she wants to feel the gravity of your spine. She wants to feel that you won't break. You think love is about proving how much you care. She wants to feel how much you can hold. And if she feels that you're not a man who holds himself, she'll walk, because she doesn't want to be your center. She wants to orbit something stronger. She never told you directly, but you could feel it. The energy changed. Her messages got shorter, her voice lost its warmth. She still smiled, but not with her eyes. She started talking about how busy she was, how she needed space, how she wasn't ready. And you, desperate not to lose her, became more present, more attentive, more giving. You thought, if I just remind her how much I care, maybe she'll come back. But the more you gave, the colder she became. What you failed to realize is that she didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she couldn't feel you anymore. Not your gifts, not your compliments, not your efforts. You were there, yes, but you were too there, too agreeable, too available, too ready to fix everything at any cost. And that's when she stopped seeing you as a force. She started seeing you as a cushion, something soft, predictable, always present. And deep down, that killed the part of her that longed to be led. Most men think presence is power, but presence without direction is just noise. You were in her life, but not as a center of gravity, not as a man who pulls with strength and silence, but as a boy who begs with words. And here's a truth no one tells you. She doesn't want to lead you. She wants to follow you, but you keep handing her the map and asking her where to go. Every time you ask, "What do you want me to do?" you place the burden of leadership on her shoulders. Every time you say, "Tell me how to make you happy," you reveal that you have no frame of your own, that your actions are dictated by her moods, not your mission. And that's when she begins to resent you. Not because you're bad, but because she can't rest around you. She has to control you, direct you, teach you, shape you. And in doing so, she loses all respect for you. And when the respect dies, desire doesn't just fade, it turns into irritation. So now she sighs more often. She criticizes little things that never used to matter. She withdraws during moments that used to be intimate. You think she's just stressed. But deep down, she's mourning the man she hoped you'd become, but never did. There's a biological reason for this. Women are wired for protection and leadership. They want to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. And emotional safety doesn't come from how much you talk about your love. It comes from how firmly you stand in yourself, how calmly you hold your frame when she tests you, because she will test you. Every woman does. Not because she's manipulative, but because she wants to feel if what you claim is real. If you say you're strong, but fold when she cries, she knows it's not real. If you say you're grounded but beg when she pulls away, she knows it's not real. If you say you're a man but act like a servant, she knows it's not real. Because she feels your essence more than she hears your words. And the essence of a man isn't in how loud he speaks. It's in how still he remains. Stillness is magnetic. It makes her lean in. It makes her curious. It makes her respect you even when she disagrees with you. Because you're not moved by emotions, you hold them. You're not shaken by her mood swings. You anchor them. You don't react. You choose. That's power. Let me give you an example. Imagine two men in a room. One is explaining himself. He's emotional, desperate, begging to be understood. The other is quiet, composed, confident. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't defend his worth. He just is. Which one do you think she's drawn to? The answer is always the one she can't control. Because mystery is not about hiding. It's about not over-explaining. And dominance is not about aggression. It's about emotional self-control. But here's where most men go wrong. They confuse silence with passive behavior. They think being stoic means being cold. That's not it. The true masculine presence is not absence. It's direction. It's not detachment. It's depth. It's saying less because you already know your truth. It's staying calm when she's losing control, not because you don't care, but because you're capable of holding space. You don't mirror her chaos. You regulate it. And when she realizes that you don't collapse under pressure, she stops trying to dominate you. She starts respecting you. She starts relaxing around you. And that's when true feminine energy emerges, playful, soft, seductive. But that only happens when you stop performing and start embodying. Stop trying to be liked. Stop trying to be needed. Stop measuring your worth by her reactions. You were not born to serve her approval. You were born to be a source, a fire she gathers warmth from, not a flame that flickers every time the wind blows. And if you doubt this, look back at every time you felt her slipping away. Wasn't it always after you gave more? After you said too much? After you chased too fast? You thought your intensity would win her heart, but it only revealed your insecurity. And insecurity is a heavy burden for a woman. She might sympathize with you, but she will never crave you. Craving comes from distance, from restraint, from subtle strength. You want to be desired? Then stop volunteering your soul like it's on clearance. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Let her wait for your attention. Let her feel the gravity of your time, your energy, your gaze, and above all, be unshakable. Because the man she desires is not the man who proves his love every second. It's the man who knows it's already enough. She won't say it out loud. Most women won't. Because it sounds cruel to admit that your constant love letters, your midnight texts, your anxious apologies are suffocating, not seductive. That your warmth feels like pressure, that your care, so eager and unfiltered, feels more like a plea than a presence. But the truth lives in her silence, in how she withdraws when you lean in how her laughter fades the moment you start over-explaining yourself. You think you're being kind. She feels you're being needy, and neediness, no matter how well-intentioned, kills polarity. Let's make something brutally clear. When a man becomes emotionally reactive, he shifts into the feminine. When a woman becomes emotionally dominant, she shifts into the masculine. And if this dynamic persists long enough, desire evaporates. Why? Because sexual tension requires polarity, masculine presence, feminine surrender. One leads, one follows, one holds, one feels. You used to lead when you first met, when she didn't know what you were thinking, when you didn't reply to her message in 5 seconds, when your attention wasn't something she could summon on demand. Back then, she leaned forward. She analyzed your silence. She read your messages twice because you weren't yet trying to be liked. You were just being you. But over time, you got scared. You felt her getting colder. You started chasing. You thought, maybe I need to do more. So you bought gifts. You planned surprises. You wrote her long messages about how much she meant to you. You thought you were pouring love into her, but all she saw was your internal collapse. The man she was once excited by, the one she had to work to understand, was gone, replaced by someone who apologized for his own needs, someone who folded the moment she frowned, someone who feared her withdrawal more than he valued his own integrity. And that's when the roles flipped. She became the stable one. You became the emotional one. And with that, the attraction died. This isn't just psychology, it's biology. Women are wired to test for strength, not to be cruel, but to survive. They want to know, can he hold me when I'm a mess? Will he stay centered when I'm emotional? Is he led by principle or by my moods? If you fail those tests, her body knows before her mind does. She doesn't even choose to pull back. It's instinctive, like touching something that used to be hot, only to find it cold and lifeless now. Here's something you need to hear, no matter how much it stings. The moment she stops feeling challenged by you, she stops feeling drawn to you. A woman doesn't fall for a man who answers every call. She falls for a man who makes her wonder why he didn't, not out of manipulation, but out of devotion to his own path, out of discipline, out of focus. He's not playing games, he's playing life. And she gets the privilege of joining if she can match his rhythm. Look at the men who are admired, desired, respected. Are they the ones constantly checking their phones? The ones over-explaining how much they care? The ones needing daily reassurance that they're enough? No, they're calm, centered, focused. They show up with presence, not performance. Because presence isn't about availability, it's about value. It's about understanding that what is rare is precious, and what is desperate is disposable. It's hard to admit you've been desperate. It bruises the ego. But your pain doesn't come from being ignored. It comes from betraying yourself to avoid that feeling. You gave too much. You gave when it wasn't asked for. You gave out of fear, not abundance, and she felt that. Here's an example. Imagine someone gives you a wrapped gift every day, even when you didn't ask for one. At first it feels nice, then it feels excessive, then you start dreading it. Because now you have to react, you have to say thank you, you have to fake enthusiasm. But the truth is, you didn't want the gift, you wanted space, you wanted to breathe. And eventually, the gifts become guilt. That's what your attention feels like when it's too much. Even love can feel like pressure when it's rooted in fear. The strongest thing you can do isn't to give more. It's to step back without resentment, to recenter, to reclaim your frame, to stop trying to prove your worth to someone who hasn't asked for proof. Because a man who needs to be chosen is weak, but a man who chooses himself is unstoppable. You think that being more kind, more soft, more open will win her back. But that's not what stirs her blood. That's not what makes her ache when you're not around. What she longs for, deeply, biologically, is to feel a man she cannot predict, a man who doesn't need her permission to exist, a man whose world is so rich that she wants a front row seat in it, not a leash around it. So stop chasing her heart. Build a kingdom where she wants to live. This means setting boundaries, not explaining them, setting them. This means being the storm she can feel even when you're silent. It means not answering right away, not because you're rude, but because you're occupied with your mission. It means saying no without fear of losing her. Because nothing scares a woman more than a man who fears her absence. She wants to feel like you could walk away at any moment, not because you don't love her, but because you refuse to love her more than yourself. That's the paradox of masculine strength. The less you beg for her attention, the more she'll fight for your presence, because she wants to be with a man who is complete without her. Only then can she feel the fire. You kept thinking that if you just showed her more love, she'd come closer, that if you texted first, paid the bill, apologized even when you weren't wrong, she'd finally feel safe enough to stay. But all that effort, all that kindness, only made her drift further. You started noticing it in the smallest ways, the delayed replies, the flat tone, the sudden, "I'm just tired" excuses when you tried to be affectionate. You didn't realize it then, but you weren't being loved. You were being tolerated. She didn't want more effort. She wanted more strength, more presence, more unpredictability, not the kind that's chaotic or cruel, but the kind that says, "I'm not here to perform for your affection. I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be." You thought that vulnerability meant being open about your fears, crying in her lap, telling her how much you need her to feel whole. But that kind of vulnerability, when it's not grounded in confidence, doesn't inspire connection. It inspires guilt. It makes her feel like your emotional mother, not your lover. And nothing kills desire faster than feeling like she has to raise the man she's dating. Women don't fall in love with broken boys hoping to be saved. They fall in love with men who can carry their own chaos, men who don't flinch when the world gets dark, men who make her feel like, no matter how unstable life gets, he is the constant. That's not cold, that's magnetic. And that's the kind of energy that makes her fantasize about you when you're not around. Most men were never taught this. You were probably raised to believe that love is about giving endlessly, about proving you're not like the other guys, about showing her you're safe. But in doing so, you became predictable, you became easy. And what is easy is rarely valued. Let me tell you something few people will. The most desired men aren't the ones who give the most. They're the ones who can walk away the fastest. That ability to walk calmly, without drama, without begging, is the foundation of real masculine power. Because it means your sense of self isn't tied to her mood. You're not pulled like a puppet by her affection or her absence. You decide how you move. You choose where you invest. And when a woman feels that kind of restraint, not indifference, but restraint, she wakes up. Her curiosity returns, her desire reignites, because she no longer feels like she owns you. When a woman feels like she fully owns a man's attention, she doesn't cherish it. She consumes it. Then she resents the man for letting himself be consumed. This is why silence, when used with purpose, is more powerful than words. Why walking away with calm certainty says more than 1,000 love declarations. A man who can hold his ground in silence, who can withstand discomfort without needing to resolve it immediately, becomes unforgettable. Because she knows she can't shake him. And that's what pulls her in. There's a scene from history that illustrates this perfectly. Julius Caesar returning to Rome after conquering Gaul. He walks into the Senate, not with arrogance, but with total command. He doesn't ask to be respected. He doesn't beg for approval. He stands in stillness, and that stillness commands the room. Women respond the same way. When you are grounded, truly, deeply grounded, they feel it in their nervous system. You don't have to say a word. Your presence speaks for you. But most men can't sit in that stillness. They fidget, they over-explain, they ask, "Are you okay? Did I do something wrong? Tell me how I can fix this." Not because they're weak, but because they were never taught how to hold emotional tension. And yet, what creates attraction is precisely your ability to hold that tension without collapsing. The moment you start managing her emotions instead of regulating your own, you step out of your masculine core. And she feels it. She may not know how to articulate it, but her body does. Her instincts do. She pulls away, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she no longer feels held. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Being needed isn't the same as being desired. She may need your money, your help, your time. But desire, that only comes from the man she can't fully predict. The man she respects because he respects himself. The man who knows he's the prize, not because he's arrogant, but because he's built a life, a discipline, a focus that makes him whole. He doesn't chase her approval. He doesn't plead for attention. He lets her come to him. And when she doesn't, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't collapse into his wounds. He returns to his purpose. That's what you must become. The man who doesn't give his presence cheaply. The man who knows that love given from fear isn't love, it's manipulation. It's trying to secure safety through surrender. But real love, the kind that builds kingdoms, comes from two sovereigns choosing each other, not one servant begging for entry into someone else's castle. You want her to see you again, to crave your attention, then stop giving it to her like it's worthless. Go build your silence. Go master your inner world. Go become the kind of man whose time is a gift, not a guarantee. And when she senses that shift, when she realizes you no longer orbit her mood, that you no longer need her validation to feel powerful, she'll look at you differently. Not with pity, not with comfort, but with hunger. Because now, you're finally the man she can't control. And that's the only kind of man a woman ever truly desires.